This is FIBA Podcast. Thank you for joining us in our morning daily devotion.
Jesus said in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 4, verse 4, that man shall live by every word that comes from the mouth of God. This morning, I would like to meditate with you from the life-giving word taken from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. But the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossom falls, and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away, even while they go about their business. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. The third imperative that James insists is found in verse 9. In verse 9, he uses the phrase ought to take. Ought to take. That is an imperative. What ought to take? There are two possible positions for man pictured in verse 9. One is humbled position, and the other is higher position. James acknowledges the life trials and sufferings can lead to some people exalted, while others are lowered by it. In Acts chapter 12, we read that Herod the king had James, the brother of John, put to death by the sword. That was the result of faith-based suffering for him. In the same chapter, we see Peter's miraculous escape from the prison. Either of these two possible ends are always found when saints are put to suffer. James' command is the lowly or the suffering believers, while our exalted can take pride for God's doing in their life. In the same manner, when someone highly positioned and suffering for Christ brings him to a lower position, that person too have pride in what God has done. The pride that James speaks here is the sanctified pride. This pride comes by recognizing God's intervention in one's life. When Daniel was thrown into lion's den, it was prideful even for him, as God orchestrated this shift from higher position to a lower position. What I mean is, from the office of prime minister to the lion's den. The same Daniel, when was found alive after had the fellowship with hungry lions, it was a shift from lower position to a higher position, from lion's den back to palace. It was indeed a prideful experience, as God orchestrated his deliverance. From up to down and down to up, both should give pride in the Lord to the believers. Regardless of our positions on the earth, we believers must focus on obedience to God. In midst of sufferings and trials against our faith in Jesus, Paul's testimony in Romans 8:18 is, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed to us. James reasons out for exhortation. In verse 10, he uses a metaphor to illustrate the fleeting nature of wealth and worldly possessions of the people on the earth. The metaphor is wild flowers. Wild flowers grow and bloom as God created them to without human interference. They are very colorful and bright, spread and flourish. However, they cannot survive forever. Scorching heat will make wildflowers wither. All its blossoms and beauty will disappear. In the same way, James says that the rich man's earthly features were temporal and would fade away one day. The implication of James' metaphor is that believers are not to be mindful of seen things of the world, but of the unseen things of the heavenly rewards. He further says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ?" This is Paul saying. "Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." In verse 12, James encourages the believers. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. James exhorts us that we should be mindful of being obedient to God in midst of all our adverse situations. We should consider positively both higher and lower results of our faith exercise as we pass through adverse situations. All that we pass through on this earth are temporal, and being with God alone is eternal.
Dear listener, we are here to stand with you in your time of need. We want to pray with you and for your prayer request. Do you need someone to talk to? We are here for you. Call us or send a message at +91 636 425 2164, +91 636 425 2164. God bless you.